Hi, welcome back. We really appreciate you being here. And if you haven't been here, please check out our YouTube channel to get caught up because we are doing some really cool stories that kind of led us to. Right now, we're just in this phase of pre-natural freedom and how we got here because it was such a journey before we even thought of natural freedom. Um, so the previous ones, we've talked about our coping skills and how we started learning the new coping skills and how to regulate ourselves. And
We also started understanding the importance of what this is to manage yourself when emotions are trying to run us over.
we had really big emotions because for a really big reason, and that just happens, right? Happens in life.
And it looks different for each person. What might be big for one person is not big for another, and we can't judge that.
Right.
It's just figuring out how to navigate what's going on in our own personal lives and make us be able to manage within that piece at a more even keel.
So, up until now, we've talked to you about how we started learning some of these skills. And in the meantime, we still hadn't had natural freedom yet, but we were dealing with animals all day long in our previous life before natural freedom, I guess.
Yes, our life before natural freedom.
Right. So I was still training, giving lessons, coaching. I had a barn full of horses. And so my first memory at the time, I was I was also traveling. I was traveling around local facilities of people that had horses that didn't want to have them come to the barn, which I rightfully understand. And so I was traveling. I had this green, huge conversion van. Remember that?
Yeah, the one that we hold our kids to Irish dancing all over the world in.
The kids before this used to call it the green bus because the green bus drove kids all over the place. But it then transitioned to my training van, and I'd load up all my training gear, and I'd go from barn to barn to barn, and work horses and train them. And so this particular horse was extremely instrumental in the fact maybe it was the timing, maybe it was this horse. I don't know, but at the time.
Are you talking about the Mustang?
I am. Very, very dear to my heart. I was blessed to have started 3 Mustangs over my career under saddle, and this particular one had a really strong relationship with its owner. He had done amazing work in hand with this horse. You could tell when I pulled up and I got to meet him, they had a strong bond, and it was really a blessing to watch it. But his goal was to be able to trail ride, and he didn't have that skill set. So I was hired to teach him or to work with him to get him under saddle so he could go on trail rides instead of lead him around their farm.
This is a story that takes several years to finish.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it's not just a short story of training.
Well, I'll try to make it short.
Okay.
Excuse me. So he showed me around and said, "This is the pasture." Got hiccup. This is the pasture he'll be in. Come help yourself. And so the next morning I went and I said, "Cool, this is gonna be easy peasy." I walked in and to the pasture, and this Mustang looked at me. I went out with my halter and lead rope to go get the horse, and have you ever seen this with a lot of our boarders, the cat and mouse game?
Oh yes, I've got this much time to get this much done, and I've got to cram it in.
Right, and I think I had that mentality. I didn't think, I know.
Well,
And
we was fluctuating between those mentalities at that time because we was learning a lot at that point in time.
And yeah, so I walked in and I did that a couple times, the cat and mouse. I go over, he goes, he didn't do anything. He just walked away and went about it again, and he walked away. And I was like, I recognize this pattern. I've watched it 1,000 times out of my kitchen window with the borders. So I was like, okay, I've been doing the yoga, been doing the breath work. I'm going to sit on this rock and just be. I'm just going to practice being like I've been doing separately to regulate myself, but I hadn't implemented it with the horses yet. Guess what happened?
A lot happened, if I remember right, because that's when the owner of the property come by and asked you what you were doing.
Yeah, he thought I wasn't doing anything.
And you was sitting there building that relationship in that space by holding space, which is an important piece of building a relationship. If we can't hold space, then the relationship's kind of failed, I think. But
yeah. So fast forward months later, he's under saddle. Got him on the trail. Left years later, absolutely years later. Um, we had needed to buy some hay, and this particular farm had hay. So I pulled up and met with the owner, and we were talking about hay. And I laughed. I remember distinctly laughing at something. And that Mustang was out in the pasture, and he popped his head out, and he came running over to the fence line. And he remembered. He remembered.
well, I think that's an important part, building that trust and relationship, because a trusting relationship without demands and wanting to relate to builds one that bonds and stays.
Oh, and Mustangs are very loyal once you gain their trust, but gaining their trust because of the trauma they have gone through to go from Mustangs to domestication. And I'll put the link in case you want to do any research about the Mustangs, because they're very, very interesting, and it was such a blessing. He put a print on my heart that I will forever be grateful for him teaching me how to be.
He was the strong one that allowed us to understand how you have to individualize relationships.
Yeah.
So
That's my first like core memory of taking some of our self-regulation skill sets and applying it to our interactions with horses, our relationship with horses. Do you have one, Mr. Robert?
I have several.
I know. How about your first one? Because we're going to have more. We have so many horse stories, you have no idea, but this is just a brief one.
So the relationship with a horse. I guess one of my strongest ones was the relationship that I built with a horse, and when I became the one struggling, he he come and he took care of me. Um, isn't that from Angels on Earth from the Guidepost? Is that the one you're talking about?
I wrote a story about it years later. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We had hit a point in life where life was coming at us very hard. It was hard to go ahead and manage what we felt life was giving us, um, to the point that I was withdrawn. I tried to I wanted to shut down, just go to bed and let the world leave me be. Um, but Pam, which is my wife, drug me out to the horse pasture one day. I wasn't willing. I was not willing, but it was one of the most amazing days that it was a day that changed my life. Let's leave it at that. Um, I'd walked as far as I could, even though she wanted me to go farther. And I sat down, and that's when, I don't know, my experience, the magic, the whatever happened. I don't know what we want to call it, but that's where everything changed. What do you remember about that day?
Um, I remember I was doing the breath work. You weren't a fan.
I well, I think that's when we start looking at this work that we do. I couldn't be a fan at that point. That was not in
But you were
my thing.
using the lavender.
Yes.
You had the lavender in your pocket, and so you were breathing,
Correct.
smelling the lavender.
Correct.
And I was rubbing your temples. Mm-hmm. We were out with the pasture in the pasture, and when Cheyenne did.
Well, that's when Cheyenne came out of nowhere. For me, I was at a point that I, I did not worry about what was going on. I was just sitting there. Maybe I was just appeasing my wife.
What?
But at that point, I was just okay. Let's go, and I'll sit here. I laid aside my fears of being on the ground, being in front of a horse, um, and all that to the side. And that's when he come up and he stuck his nozzle on the top of my head.
For how long? 2 minutes or more?
I believe he remained there for 45 minutes off and on. You told me the story that as my head lowered, he would follow my head down, and as my head raised, he'd follow it up. And that if any other horse would come close to me, he would turn and run them away. Um, he was protecting me.
Do you remember when we were done? When he was done and he went off to the field.
You got into your raw story here.
I'm sorry. And you're okay if you want to stop.
Yeah, that's okay. No, he was protecting me. Um, I knew that Pam had my back. I knew that he had my back. It had been several years since I'd felt that anybody had my back within business. 10% was in at that point. That's getting a lot of pressure from a lot of different directions, and it truly did allow me to change my direction and understand that I wasn't alone.
Thanks for sharing. I know. If you'd like to know a little bit of the pressures, we've already talked about that in previous videos. And feel free to check them out. And we'll also put a link of I wrote the story way before it was actually published, if you remember right, because it was your horse. I don't know if I've told you this or if you remember it. When I was writing the story, it was your mounted archery horse that stayed with me the entire time I was riding it in the back of the barn.
Old Coco?
Yeah, old Coco. She stayed there. I just sat there, and this was way before, the additions and the covered arena. It was raw. And I sat out there and I was just riding. And she stayed there the entire time. And I thought how ironic it was that your mounted archery horse was with me while I wrote it. And then I submitted it years before, but it finally got published in the spring of 2010. So we'll put a link to if you want to read the whole thing. But do you remember when they came to do the photography?
It was so cold,
gosh.
and they wanted us to do it,
like it was February.
Like it was spring.
I know, we had to be in short sleeves, and everybody that knows me knows that I hate being cold. I always wear I have snow pants when it's 50. So, but yeah, and they said act like it's spring, and it's like I have a newfound appreciation for models. That's all I have to say.
I will say that if you look at the pictures really closely,
I'm
the short sleeves with no leaves on the tree kind of gives it away.
But they sent that poor photographer out of, I think it was New York, or I don't know, Cincinnati. I don't know where, but anyway, it was fun experience. Um, Now we have one more story before we end. Um, we had gone to a retreat, a spiritual retreat, which you will hear in the future segments. Someone else that we met at this retreat, and it's a very powerful story. You won't want to miss it.
No, you
Um,
won't. It's powerful.
but in that retreat, there was a Native American there that was sharing their culture and shared the drum building.
We
This
made
was in
we
2008.
made Native American drums,
Mm-hmm.
and oh, now I know where you're going. You're going on that story where I was drumming in the barn.
Mm-hmm.
I was still farming, and we hadn't completely transitioned into natural freedom, so I was still dairy farming and working the farm. Um, and I had a really tough day from all the existential input coming from all those government agencies. But um, I came in and I grabbed my drum and I sat on a bale of hay.
I think it was a tack box. We still had tack
Was it
boxes
tack
in the
box?
aisle a while away because we still had
Oh,
borders.
we still had. Okay.
Yeah, we still had borders because we were doing the
So what
demonstrations
transpired
with
at
the
that
borders.
time?
Hmm?
What do you remember transpiring at that time?
I remember I had Snick in the cross ties. Snick is our thoroughbred. He is a very sensitive guy. And I just finished up something with him. That's what I remember. And you were sitting on the tack box,
Okay.
and he was really dancing. This is what I remember. He was dancing until
Well,
in the middle of your drumming,
I
he
was
got real quiet.
I was trying to find my space in drumming and trying to find who. Yeah, I was just trying to find a drum.
Hmm.
Um,
But what do you remember after that?
I remember that I finally relaxed and just done what came natural to me, and I think that's when the whole barn shifted. You wrote a story about that, didn't you?
No.
The drumming.
Oh yes, I did. You're right. Um, I did, and somebody picked it up from Journey with Dolphins or something. Um, because she wrote me quite often that dolphins do the same thing.
They'd had the same experience.
But I don't think we got there yet. Because do you remember what happened with the barn when I was turning the horses out?
They didn't leave.
They did not.
They didn't leave. They actually, we would turn one horse out. He would come over and stick his nose on the top of the drum, and then when the next horse come, they would spin around and go back into another stall. They just alternated, and I think they took two revolutions
2 laps, yeah.
with all the horses, and the back door to the pasture was totally open. They were free.
Yeah.
They didn't have not have to come back to the space that we were in.
Our philosophy in our barn when we turn them out to the pastures, we open up the back gate, we open up, and they are allowed to leave independently. Same with coming in, they pick their own stalls, so we don't have assigned stalls. But yeah, and so I did write about that on some, I think, equine facilitated mental health and learning, way back, and somebody reached out and said that's what we do. We take people out on boats in the Caribbean,
And
they drum, and
the
dolphins
dolphins will circle the boat.
How cool would that be? But it was just as cool in our barn. So anyway,
It was.
it was
Definitely as cool.
and that's when we started looking at things from a different angle. I think in general was just
We started looking at that. We started looking at what we was giving to the relationship or what we was trying to give the relationship versus to what was just there. And
shifting our perspective
yeah.
from um, away from our agenda brain and into our heart, and just
I would
being,
agree with that.
just
Definitely
being with the
being in the
animals.
heart.
I have this because this is the same time frame. This was the last. We're going to talk about all the different trainers and the clinics we've been to that have been instrumental in our journey through creating natural freedom. But this was one of Ray Hunt's last clinics, and it means a lot. And we have utilized a lot of the quotes. They really help in life. So that's for another day. But just wanted to give you a preview.
There's a lot of simple wisdom to that. It doesn't take a lot of words.
Yep. His quote to me that day was "Think, May 12th, 07." So anyway, thank you so much for listening. Again, we have so many more horse stories and many other stories of other people's experiences with horses, and we look forward to sharing those with you. So thank you and have a wonderful day.
I hope you continue to listen to what we have to say. There's a lot of experiences here that we had that we just want to share. I think they're important. So have a good